This book, I remember years and years ago, was a labor of love. I'd never written a book before. I didn't know what went into writing a book. I didn't feel that I even had enough to talk about. And I remember for months and months and months and months, I slaved away at this book. I interviewed hundreds of successful law firm owners, and I wanted to put all of the insights and lessons and everything we had learned over the years from a marketing standpoint, a brand standpoint, a positioning standpoint, really how you as a law firm owner could differentiate and stand out from the competition and position yourself to attract higher value cases. So I remember when I was writing this, I'll tell you what, I learned an important lesson that if you don't have a deadline, right? Deadlines are amazing forcing functions, but if I didn't have a deadline in writing this book, I think I'd still be writing this book years and years later. So when I decided to write this, I said, you know what? I'm going to launch this book at our first conference back in 2018. So I had a deadline. I had a deadline for when the manuscript was due. I had a deadline for when we had to lock in every single aspect of this book, from the cover design to all the interviews that I had to complete, to all the research, all the sources, everything that had to be done in time. So I'll tell you what, if you want to get anything done, put a deadline on it. And the tighter the deadline, probably the more likelihood that you'll get it done. Because if you give yourself a year, it'll take a year. If you give yourself 6 months, it'll take 6 months. But I remember, when I got to the end, when I had to submit the manuscript, I probably read this thing over, 500 times. Like every single chapter, I read it and reread it and reread it and reread it. And I remember we even ended up cutting, I think, 1 or 2 chapters from the book, my editor and I, to even slim it down further. And if you asked me the day before I submitted the manuscript what the book was about, after reading it 500 times, at that point, I couldn't even tell you what the book was about, because I was in that kind of state. And I had these nightmares that I would go on Amazon and it just, would bomb and nobody wouldn't like it. But I put my heart and soul into it. And I think when a book is finished or creative work is finished, and that is when you have nothing more to give. And that's where I was when this book came out. So I hope you enjoy.